Good day, I'm Askat Sherleaf and you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. The project New Silk Road was proposed by the President of Kazakhstan to foreign investors during an investment forum on Tuesday. As was noted by Nursultan Nazarbayev, the country should become a bridge between China and Europe and the largest business transit hub of the Central Asian region. The 25th investment forum avoided the expected high-profile statements. Foreign guests, as always, praised the country and its leader, noting the increasing investment attractiveness of the country.
Perhaps the only statement was a comment from the director of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, who stated that corruption stands in the way of development for Kazakhstan's business. However, the nation's leader has unexpectedly formulated conditions for foreign oil and gas companies, having asked them to invest into the industrialization of the country. This, according to the president, will determine further allocation of sites for exploration and development. In addition, he suggested that the respective ministry will reconsider the composition of working groups and the Investors' Council on the whole, having added that he'd be happy to see everyone again at the next meeting. Finally, Nursultan Nazarbayev has puzzled everyone by emphasizing the importance of cooperation with China and suggested to build an entire town at the location of the notorious customs checkpoint, Horgoz.
I'd like
to inform you that on the territory of 500 hectares on China's side and 500 hectares on Kazakhstan's side, we are creating a city complete with infrastructure and industrial enterprises producing goods. The supply lines for goods will run from there to both our and Chinese sides. I am going to visit this site in the nearest future and declare that we have completed it.
Nursultan Nazarbayev used the investment forum as an opportunity to meet with the board chairman of Glencore International AG, Ivan Glasenberg. According to the president's press service, during the meeting they discussed development perspectives of mutual cooperation. A year ago, the ex-son-in-law of the president, Rahat Aliyev, noted Glencore's increased interest in Kazakhstan. Back then, Aliyev said that Glencore plans to increase its stake in Kazakh companies Kazakhstan and ENRC. Considering the fact that the final beneficiary of these companies is President Nazarbayev himself, Aliyev believes the deal can possibly involve the legalization of shadow funds. Aliyev pointed out that the main goal of the operation was to legalize illegally obtained assets in the West. In addition, protection from prosecution and investigation is secured in case the dictatorship falls. According to the ex-son-in-law, the president's interests in Kazakhstan companies are represented by Utimuratov, Shadiev, Ibragimov and Mashkevich. Civil society representatives and NSDP Azat members then expressed their concerns about the deal in the making. Sunday Times also reported that Glencore CEO was in talks with the leaders of the Eurasian group about the acquisition of stake in the ENRC for 12 billion British pounds or $19.5 billion US. In turn, Glencore has shares in Kazakhstan, Altantau Resources Kazakhstan Grain Company and Ekibastus Bogatyrko. While the president was meeting with the investor, he was addressed by the country's public activists. The veteran of Kazakhstan politics, Serikbolsyn Abdildin, and a member of the Zhanaozen Committee 2011, Jasaral Kuanashalin, demand to stop criminal persecution of the Alga party leader Vladimir Kozlov, opposition activist Serik Sapargali, and Zhanaozen oil workers. They intend to follow up the appeal with a flower-laying ceremony to commemorate the victims of political repressions.
When memory wanes, tragedies tend to repeat themselves, says politician Serikbolsyn Abdildin, who leads a group of public activists. They propose to gather at the symbolic stone in Almaty on May 31st, the day of the victims of political repressions, and recall once again the terrible Stalinist history, which is evidently being repeated now, just under different circumstances.
Все это сегодня доказывает, что все репрессии как были, так и остаются.
All this proves that repressions are still taking place. Today we hear witnesses in courts on the Zhanaozen case saying all confessions and testimonies were forced by the prosecutors and investigators with the use of unbelievable torture, humiliation and threats. In other words, history is repeating itself.
То есть все повторяется вновь.
The activists intend to lay flowers at the stone where 20 years ago it was planned to raise a memorial to victims of political repressions. However, the Almaty bureaucrats seem to have short memories and no one is going to commemorate the victims of political terror of the 1930s. As the president of Ulagaty Zhanuya Public Foundation adds, the situation is similar with other memorials in different cities of Kazakhstan. This despite the fact that victims of Stalin's repressions, according to some estimates, constitute about 40 million people. Over 5 million of them were prisoners in Kazakhstan camps.
Эти камни до сих пор стоят. потому что памятников никто не поставил.
These stones are still there because no one built these memorials. In Zhezkazgan, the stone was replaced with a battle tank because these stones have been completely neglected, like in Pavlodar. When we forget about our history, we become people who don't remember where they come from. It could only end in a tragedy.
Что было с нами, мы напоминаем Иванов, не помнящих родства своего. А это заканчивается трагически.
For contemporary writer Bulat Yelemesov, recent events in Zhanaozen draw parallels with those of December 1986. The writer points out many similarities like shootings, repressions, and arrests. In 1986, 97 people were sentenced. There was also a committee for the protection of defendants, which examined the cases and demanded to pardon and release people, although it all happened much later. Only time and new authorities rehabilitated those who went to the Almaty Square in 1986, recalls Bulat Yelemesov, a member of that very committee. The recent verdict for the arrests in Shetpe is unfair, he believes, and intends to submit a petition to the prosecutor's office to start a criminal case against judges.
Я призываю общественность выражать свой протест.
I call on the public to express their protest through complaints and petitions to the prosecutor's office and the Supreme Council, targeting the illegality of these brutal sentences. If the prosecutor's office receives a whole bag of similar claims, I believe it will have to follow up. So far, there has been no response to his call on Facebook, but writer and activist Bulat Yelemesov is ready to prove the unfairness of these sentences related to the unrest, even on his own. He says it's his constitutional right and his attempt to stop the contemporary repression machine.
Members of Alga Party pending registration were detained on Tuesday for distributing leaflets with an invitation to attend the ceremony of commemorating the victims of political repressions on May 31st. The campaign supposedly caused some concern of the local market administration, and its members called the police.
The leaflets, however, are quite peaceful in nature. The opposition members simply invited citizens to commemorate political repression victims and pay them due respects. Notably, May 31st is the official day to commemorate victims of political repressions, according to President Nazarbayev's decree. However, the policemen did not believe in good intentions of the activists, confiscated all of their materials, and delivered everyone to a police station. Having drafted the protocols, the police released everyone and promised to call them to the district internal affairs office the next day. There is nothing there containing terrorist propaganda. We invite everyone to take part in the commemoration, but they have been given orders to detain all of the leaflet distributors. We heard with our own ears the deputy chief of the district DIA saying, "We have not detained you." That is, we cannot leave, but at the same time we are not detained. This, I believe, is what is called unlawful detainment.
After 5 months spent in the pre-detention center of Aktau on charges of organizing mass riots as well as arson and resisting police actions, residents of Shetpe have finally returned home. Fellow villagers remained unsatisfied by the issued court verdict, saying the trial was a political order. The scenario in which not all of the defendants were released was already predetermined, say families of the accused. Those in attendance during the announcement of the verdict are confident that the demand of the Shetpe residents to stop bloodshed in Zhanaozen was fully justified.
Shetpe residents are not going to give up, willing to go as far as the Supreme Court until all of their fellow villagers are released. To recap, a verdict was passed recently regarding mass riots on December 17 at the Shetpe station. Murzatayev, one of the defendants, was acquitted and released right in the courtroom due to the lack of evidence. 6 other defendants were found guilty and sentenced to 2 years, although all of them had been released due to amnesty granted. The other 4 defendants received varying sentences of up to 5 years, while Kazakhstan Avezov was sentenced to the longest term of 7 years in a maximum security prison. To be honest, we were expecting an amnesty to be granted to some of the guys. We felt they would be acquitted, and they were. Although the regional trial is going to be held as well, the Supreme Court will pass its verdict and not everyone will be released. As of now, I can't say I'm dissatisfied with the way the trial was progressed. We should wait for better times and hope that the rest of the guys will be set free. We did not get any response from the policemen. They are covering each other. It seems that it has all been prearranged. We keep saying that everyone will be tried, but there was a plan to convict 4 or 5 people. All the people are worried. They take to the streets to support them. People in Shetpe came out to protest against the events in Zhanaozen. Where else did people go out to support the defendants? It was only in Shetpe. Those guys are real heroes. They will go down as such in history. The newspapers were lying to us. According to them, only 14 people were killed. The TV says the same, 14 casualties. But the guys on trial said recently that people were being shot down like dogs. In fact, there were over 100 casualties.
The use of torture against defendants in the Zhanaozen violence case was reported to the United Nations. Paul Murphy, a European leftist MP, appealed with a letter to Juan Mendes, the UN Special Rapporteur on torture, asking him to look into the situation of using illegal methods of acquiring testimonies in Western Kazakhstan.
I'm honored.
Paul Murphy asks Mendes to send a letter to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Kazakhstan and, if possible, visit the country in person. The urgency of the issue is dictated by the fact that the court hearings are nearing their end. Despite the multiple statements on torture during the investigation, the prosecutor's office demands up to 9 years of imprisonment for the majority of the defendants. However, the confessions were simply beaten out of many of them, Murphy writes. In particular, the EMP points out Kairat Yedilov, Roza Tulitaeva, Yesengildi Abdrakhmanov, as well as witnesses Berden Kojamberdiyev and Yerlan Zhaulaukhanov. During the trial, they have stated many times that policemen had tortured them. Besides, Murphy is outraged by the arrest of Vadim Kuramshin, a well-known activist against prison torture in Kazakhstan. Local authorities are simply trying to take it out on him, Paul Murphy states.
Kazakhstan fails to fulfill its obligations regarding human rights, said international and local human rights activists during an expert conference on Tuesday. Officials disagree with this assessment.
The work performance of government agencies responsible for implementing the National Plan for Human Rights is unsatisfactory. On Wednesday, the United Nations Committee has criticized Kazakhstan for the low rates of implementation of the recommendations. In the first 2 years, the authorities have managed to address only 17% of the received complaints.
Is a party to the optional protocol which gives its citizens the right to petition us. The broader issue is if the state doesn't generally provide, well, the only thing is that we can only remind them and make the reminders public and with the help of civil society.
The OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights also criticized Kazakhstan following the recent parliamentary elections. At that time, President Nazarbayev did not take it well and even threatened not to allow observers at further campaigns. On Tuesday, May 23rd, the Central Elections Committee member Marat Sarsimbayev said that the international standards offered by ODIHR require local approval. It seems like an official response can be expected soon as well. We are now preparing rebuttals in regard to the ODIHR final report, which was released in Kazakh and English on their website. We will hand in our rebuttals in Kazakh, Russian, and English to the leadership of the OSCE ODIHR. Kazakhstan human rights activists agree with their foreign colleagues. As noted by Zaurish Batalova, state agencies perceive the National Action Plan as a document of a recommendatory nature. They address other international agreements accordingly. The public activist said that sometimes the judges ignore international agreements signed by Kazakhstan, although they should prioritize them. Nazgul Yirgalieva agrees. We note that in reality the situation has not been changed for the better. First, these measures do not improve the practice. Second, no efficient measures have been taken at all. Therefore, we conclude that the National Action Plan on Human Rights is ineffective as a tool. Officials dismissed the claim. A representative of the Supreme Court stated that the estimate is too critical and measures already taken in Kazakhstan are quite sufficient.
The trial of Vadim Kuramshin, who calls to stop tortures in Kazakhstan prisons, continues for already third week in Taras. The activist has been charged with extortion. The key defense witness on the case failed to appear in the court on Tuesday. This, however, is not the first time case witnesses choose not to give testimonies for various reasons. Out of 12 people scheduled to speak before the judge, only 3 have been questioned so far, says Kuramshin's attorney, Razia Nurmasheva.
Many of the witnesses do not show up at the trial. I think they avoid testimonies in order to learn what they will need to say in the future. They want to get more information on the trial, learn more about how it is going. Later, they will be prepared when questioned. Mamedov Sr. was questioned recently. His son, unfortunately, did not make it, and he's the primary case witness on Kuramshin's case accusing Odorbayev of graft. To recap, on January 23rd this year, Vadim Kuramshin was arrested in Korday village together with human rights activist Karabay Kusainov, a socialist movement member and socialismkz.info website reporter Arman Ojaibayev. The activists came to the village to meet the district prosecutor and gather more information on the extortion case involving local officials. However, right after their arrival, the activists were arrested and charged with a similar crime. On January 24th, the Kordai District Court ruled to arrest Kuramshin, who was later transferred to Taraz. Allegedly, the public activist caught the prosecutor's official in a corruption deal and attempted to blackmail him. Kuramshin's trial is officially open to the public. However, the use of photo and video cameras is prohibited.
Since recently, single-person pickets are taking place in Karaganda almost every day. This time, civil activists target most popular city sites instead of government offices. The number of picketers interested in taking part in the pickets is steadily growing, and even members of unorthodox youth movements are joining the protests.
People used their cell phones to record the lonely protester who demanded to disclose the whereabouts of Vladimir Kozlov. It seems that authorities can't send special police forces every time a protest action takes place. For this reason, this picket was not interrupted by prosecutors and other officials' intervention. The action clearly raised city residents' awareness about Kozlov and his present location. After all, state-owned media is reluctant to report anything regarding the opposition leaders. To recap, Vladimir Kozlov, the leader of Volga party, was arrested on charges of inciting social discord following the events in Zhanaozen. According to some information sources, he was supposed to be transferred to Aktau, where the trial is going to be held soon. Similar protests are now organized in all cities across the country. We are trying to find out about the whereabouts of Vladimir Kozlov. As of now, we have no information whether he is dead or alive and what is his health condition. For some reason, this information has become top secret.
Public transportation fees will almost double in Kazakhstan soon. Officials announced the news on Tuesday, May 22nd, during the briefing at the Almaty mayor's office. They assured that the step is a necessary measure. More details in the next report.
People will have to pay 54 cents instead of 33 for public transportation in Almaty starting mid-June. This solution was approved by all authorities and submitted for public hearings. The officials assure that private transportation fleets will be forced to improve the quality of services and purchase new vehicles. Besides, the price of subway tickets and passes will not change. Today, the City Council approved our proposal. Indeed, all of us are convinced that representatives of lower social status of the population will be protected. That is, these rates will not affect them. Basically, they will affect those who have not bought month-long passes, and these people, along with the city guests, will pay 54 cents. Yunus Gagiyev, a fleet owner, says the entrepreneurs asked for more, but were given far less than they have now. The businessman complains about the rising cost of fuel, spare parts, and elevated taxes due to the customs union. Only the range of car maintenance services helps to stay afloat. As early as last year, the carriers insisted on 67 cents per ride, but they refused to raise the cost. It's like surgery. It will hurt in the beginning, and later it will feel better. We will get used to this because there is nowhere to go. People wonder whether we'll be able to see new buses, friendly drivers, electronic payments, quality service, and no bus races on the road. In response, we requested higher rates. You think we earn a lot? We do not. We have a lot of problems, but 67 cents would be enough to upgrade the spare parts of the vehicles. Some residents hardly believe in the future of improved services and care of the authorities. For them, the new boarding fees is just another link in the chain of price hikes for utility rates and foodstuff. It is quite expensive. The salaries should be increased for this to take place, and the financial status of the population must be high enough. Then prices can be raised. Everything should be done proportionally. People will travel anyways because they have no other choice, and those who used to survive on social benefits will have to adopt now and keep on surviving. Everything became more expensive. The price of fuel rose, and so accordingly, all transportation fees will also rise. This is logical in my opinion. What else can we do? We will pay these fees. I'm retired and I use a monthly pass, and I will keep paying for it even if it costs $15 or $20 because it's convenient and I will use it often. Transportation fees in Almaty have not changed in the past 4 years. In 2011, private vehicle fleet owners increased the cost of services in Taldykhorgan and Pavlodar, but the city council intervened and the decision was cancelled. Shymkent carriers have also requested the raise, but the fees eventually remained at the same level. Now the authorities of Kızılorda and Aktau are facing similar requests for the new fare prices.
Pavlodar officials are considering their options of cutting down on bread prices. A decision was made to partner with small bakeries and create competition to the biggest bread maker in the region, Pavlodar Bakery Plant LLP. To recall, it was this enterprise that announced a 15% price hike for a common bread roll.
We've signed agreements with small and medium-sized baker shops to stabilize prices for bread made of first-grade flour. The heads of those baker shops have signed an agreement according to which they can't raise prices for a 550-gram first-grade loaf of bread. The prices will remain as they are now.
50 грамм из муки первого сорта, которая сложилась на май текущего года.
The major bread-making company in Pavlodar region announced price rise for bread a month ago. The bread makers said the price increase was due to increasing costs for raw materials, gasoline and electric energy. It turned out that the authorities could not influence the decision of the dominating bread maker, and the primary food product rose in price. Pavlodar residents have mixed feelings regarding this fact. Some of them oppose the price hike, others believe this is a common factor. If the salaries and pensions are increased, then we'll be able to buy bread at a more expensive price. It is of course a bad thing, especially for retired people. Our pensions are ridiculous and the bread prices are rising. It means prices for everything else will rise as well. I think this is normal.
Sergei Mavrodi is back with a new financial pyramid. To date, MMM 2011 in Kazakhstan boasts up to 50,000 investors. Will the adjective fooled be added to their description? Find out in the following report.
Как дела, Леня?
Сапоги жене справил. Теперь будем на шубу такие.
И это просто, Леня. АО МММ.
This ad from the post-Soviet 90s may again become relevant in Kazakhstan. 14 years after the collapse of his financial pyramid and a prison term, Sergei Mavrodi is back in the spotlight. And the notorious Russian's new project is called MMM 2011, but the basics are still the same. I will not touch your money. I am not allowed to. That is, I will have nothing to do with this formally. I'm just going to manage the process. Mavrodi uses his blog to explain organizational details of his project. His whereabouts are unknown to any of the investors. Statistics on the website show that the new pyramid already involves 35 million people, and about 50,000 of them are from Kazakhstan. They went public on May 9th in an Almaty park, where they were handing out $5 bills and ice cream bonuses to those who filled out questionnaires. In Shymkent, the MMM members were handing out bread. The easy money virality is spreading very quickly. Now the local pyramid is being built on the base of multi-level marketing. There are crews, co-pilots and captains here. The recruiters for the pyramid ranked in accordance with the number of people they bring in. Who are these crews, co-pilots and captains? These are the same people who are also in the system. They create a chain of those who can benefit from the group. In Almaty, local authorities have limited themselves with the warning of the population so far. The state does not have legal tools to eliminate the pyramid as it is, admits Sergei Kuyanov, the spokesperson from the mayor's office. This time, all operations are carried out via the internet, and people send each other money as financial assistance. Unfortunately, none of the post-Soviet states have laws prohibiting the operation of financial pyramids, unlike in foreign countries. Here, we are faced with the fact that hundreds of thousands of our citizens once again fall for these promises and may believe that once the pyramid collapses, they will not be at the bottom of its ruins. However, the state itself did not meddle in these questionable ventures. Many people remember the initial stages of privatization. Now, the national IPO program is being adopted in the country, and it strongly reminds the population about the infamous voucher system. In this sense, the second advent of MMM is almost natural. They're quite open about this being a pyramid, but people's desire to live a better life is stronger. Apparently, there is something about all of this we should pay attention to. People need to be properly informed in some other way because they are willing to take risks, but do not realize that these risks are very high. Among other CIS states, Kazakhstan is ranked third in the amount of funds invested into MMM 2011, which has already accumulated over $350 million. So far, the supervisory authorities have not registered any complaints. Thus, the progression is gaining momentum, economists explain.
Meanwhile, internet censorship was at the center of attention in the capital. Head of the popular blog software LiveJournal, Anton Nosik, explained that Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan are on the same level in terms of blocking websites. Nosik spoke at the 5th Economic Forum in Astana. His service, commonly referred to as ZZ, is officially shut down in Kazakhstan since August 2011. More on the story next.
A well-known blogger and LiveJournal media director Anton Nosik speaks in brave and quiet quips. This is his first time in Astana. He came here after an invitation and he never read any local politicians online. On the web he is known as the father of Runet and his thoughts seem to run within 140-character limit. Speaking on online censorship, he says that people blocking LiveJournal in Kazakhstan are simply not smart. Nevertheless, there will be no talks on the unlocking terms with the local government, which punishes its own people with this practice. There is no room for negotiations here. There is a civilized way and then there is savagery. To ban a platform for communication, to forbid people to read. These methods are of totalitarian dictatorships and obscurantist theocracies. Nosik himself needed only a moment to enter his LiveJournal in Astana, but that's exactly why he is a media director. Kazakhstan users have been experiencing problems with LiveJournal access for the last 2 years. At first, the blogging platform became unavailable due to the appearance of Rahat Aliyev's blog. The man was in disfavor, and in August of 2011, Sararka District Court of Astana officially banned LiveJournal for promoting of extremism. Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan are sharing the same position in regards to internet censorship. I wish for Kazakhstan to be a more advanced country than Turkmenistan. Censorship cannot live long in the 21st century. In addition to social networks, other global issues were discussed during the first day of the 5th Economic Forum, including the prospects of the global economy and mitigation of the impending crisis. The last year idea of the new reserve currency by Nursultan Nazarbayev was discussed as well. At the moment, the reserve currency is the dollar, but quite possibly the Eurasian Union will be able to offer an alternative in the future. Why bother with the creation of a new currency when even the old and reliable ones are no longer trustworthy? This issue will be elaborated on for quite some time, eliminating all the mistakes and miscalculations. The errors can be fixed in the Eurozone, whereas when we have 200 countries using a reserve currency, it will be much more difficult. While local scientists are trying to analyze the global issues, the invited Nobel Prize winners are trying to stay awake. American professors Finn Kidland and Edward Prescott don't seem to be especially interested in what is happening around them. The invited scholars rather seem to be there just for the show, adding weight to the Astana Forum. In the next 2 days, the organizers promised to present the audience with ambassadors, ministers, and even the former head of the International Monetary Fund. Also, of note is the price tag of the 3-day event. It costs Kazakhstan $2.8 million, in spite of all the crisis talks.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching and goodbye.